Hi, everybody. It's Lauren Underwood, and I have the honor of representing Illinois' 14th Congressional District. I am so glad to have you join today to learn more about the Federal Emergency Rental Assistance Program and how it can help you and your neighbors. As you know, in March, Congress passed the American Rescue Plan, and it continues to deliver relief for families across the nation and in the 14th District. We're getting students back to school safely, businesses back open safely, and vaccinations in the arms of Americans. I'm grateful to see the progress that we've made as a country as we all work to defeat COVID-19 and hopefully return to normal life as quickly and as safely as we can. But we can't forget that many of our neighbors continue to struggle and feel the impact of the past year, especially those who fell behind in rent and mortgage payments. In addition to providing funding to school districts, local governments, and individuals, the American Rescue Plan funds the Federal Emergency Rental Assistance Program. The Federal Emergency Rental Assistance Program provides the state of Illinois $660 million to assist landlords and renters hard hit by COVID-19 with rent payments. To ensure there's no confusion, the Federal Emergency Rental Assistance is called the Illinois Rental Payment Program. These programs are one and the same. Very shortly, I'll be joined by Rick Guzman from the Neighbor Project, who will get into more details on the program, eligibility, and how you can apply. But I wanted to share a bit about how this program will work. Applicants who apply to the Illinois Rental Payment Program are eligible for up to 15 months of rent assistance. This assistance will come in the form of a grant, which means it will not need to be repaid. The grant can cover past due rent from the past 12 months and future rent if deemed necessary. Applicants can receive up to $25,000 in rental assistance if needed and qualifications are met. This assistance will go directly to landlords. You can apply for the program if you're behind on rent for at least 30 days, have experienced financial hardship directly or indirectly due to the pandemic, like being laid off, a reduction in hours, loss of child support, etc., or if you're at risk of homelessness or housing instability. My colleagues in Congress and I know this funding is desperately needed as members of our community face housing uncertainty. That's why I'm proud to have supported robust funding for the Federal Emergency Rental Assistance Program to help landlords and tenants across the nation. The American Rescue Plan also funds homeowner assistance for people who need help with their mortgage. Now, that program is currently being developed, and so I'll provide updates as soon as the program guidelines are released. I know this program, along with the other American Rescue Plan programs, will ensure our community has the resources it needs to build back stronger than ever. In addition to legislation passed in Washington, D.C., my team and I remain committed to ensuring that you're treated fairly by federal programs. Please reach out if we can be of any assistance to you with issues related to the Illinois Rental Payment Program or questions you may have with the Small Business Administration, the IRS, Housing and Urban Development, and other federal agencies. My casework team has been able to help constituents with a variety of cases and has recovered close to $12 million for constituents. Now, let's jump into why you're here today to learn more about the Federal Emergency Rental Assistance Program. I'd now like to hand it over to Rick Guzman, the Executive Director of the Neighbor Project, to go over the Illinois Rental Payment Program and answer any questions that you may have. Thanks for joining us today, Rick.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having us. We want to really appreciate you helping to highlight this and make your constituents aware of this much needed assistance, but also for making it all possible by supporting the legislation and these much needed resources.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So real quickly, I wanted to kind of walk through the basics of the program, maybe answer some questions that people might have about what's covered, what isn't, and who is eligible and who may not be. But also I wanted to just very quickly explain why the Neighbor Project is involved in this, and just to take maybe 30 seconds to explain who we are. We're a grassroots community development organization that's based on the idea that stronger neighbors make for stronger neighborhoods, and that we all benefit when our neighbors who may be struggling with something have access to resources just like this. We're also a HUD-approved housing counseling agency, so we oftentimes will help people either stay in their homes or be able to access first-time home ownership. And we run the Financial Empowerment Center. So if people are in partnership with the City of Aurora, so if people are maybe looking for something beyond the one-time assistance that this program may be able to offer, we also offer free budgeting or credit counseling, help with debt reduction, with saving, and really just putting your financial pieces in order. And so that's another program that we like to make sure that we offer to people. But we also partner with the Illinois Housing Development Authority. So most of their programs, we are a partner to help make sure that there is a local resource available to you to be able to access programs like this one. So we'll jump into the Illinois Rental Payment Program. And you can see on the screen here, we are open today. So actually this morning, the portal opened for the first time, and it will be open for the next roughly a month. But the way that it's operating this year is that there are two separate application periods. One is, and the one that is open now has to be initiated by the landlord or by the housing provider. So that's open now. The landlord will initiate those applications, and then the tenant will have a portion that they have to fill out. There is going to be another opening in June. I believe that they just let us know that June 9th is the date. So if you are a tenant, you need to talk to your landlord so that their landlord can start the application, and then you'll get a link to fill out your part of the application. Or if your landlord isn't able to apply or isn't willing to apply to work with you, then there will be an opportunity again for you to apply roughly in a little bit less than a month, so June 9th. And then you'll have most of the rest of June, I think until June 28th, to be able to apply as a tenant. So again, every application has to have both the landlord and the tenant to participate. And as the Congresswoman indicated, it's up to $25,000 in rental assistance. And it could be 12 months. The actual coverage period is from June through May of this year. So 12 months of past rent. And if you think, or your landlord thinks, that you're going to have trouble for the next 3 months, you can ask for up to 3 months of additional forward moving rent to cover you through August of this year. So all of the kind of basics are available at ihda.org. That's for the Illinois Housing Development Authority.org. And you can access the application directly at ilrpp.ida.org. So again, the Illinois Rental Payment Program at the Illinois Housing Development Authority.org. So ilrpp.ida.org is where you can go straight to the application. We can go to the next slide. There's just a couple more eligibility requirements I wanted to cover here. So the main kind of threshold questions about whether or not you're going to be eligible for this is that there has to have been some sort of financial hardship that was related directly or indirectly to the pandemic. So this could be not only a layoff, so that certainly helps you qualify for this, but it could also be any loss of income. And that loss of income could be from a reduction of hours. It could be because you had to stay home with a child who was remote learning. It could really be anything that impacted your ability to pay rent over the last year. So that's the first thing. The next thing is that you do have to be currently behind. Right. So, and you have to be a month behind is how that works. And I think that you don't necessarily have to be a full, like if you only were able to pay $200 of your rent in May or last month, you may still be able to apply, and you may be able to still apply for that forward-looking rent. For example, if you had a very recent job loss or economic hardship. But you do have to be currently behind. So that's a key important part, and you have to be able to demonstrate that. The other big qualification here is based on income, right? And so there are multiple ways that you can prove this as well, but you have to be at or below 80% of the area median income. And to give you some idea, I've actually got the chart up on my other screen here. What that means is that for a household of one, you have to make under $52,000, $52,200. If you're a household of four, which might be more typical, $74,550 is the maximum that you can make. You'd have to make that or less in order to be eligible for this program. And it keeps going up as your income or as your family size goes up, and it goes down a little bit as your family size goes down. But that's the threshold eligibility that is there. Now, that can be based on your the easiest thing would be to base that on your 2020 income. So if you filed your taxes, I think they're due this week, but if you filed your taxes, that's one way of doing it. You could also submit a W-2 from your employer. Or again, if your income has changed in the last, say, since 2020, and you've had some job loss, you can also provide current pay stubs, or there's also a form if, for example, you get paid in cash, or you don't get traditional sort of salary, or you have 1099 forms. There's a number of ways you can prove what your income is and that you're eligible. But there's also a catch-all form where you can basically attest, sign your name, say, this is kind of committing that it's true, and then indicate what your income is on this. It's called an attestation form. You're self-attesting that this is what your income is. So IDA has made it really easy, no matter how you get paid, to be able to demonstrate your eligibility. And then the final thing here is that priority will be given to applicants who've been unemployed for 90 days. So if you can demonstrate when you might have been laid off, that will give you first priority, and those will be the first applicants to be funded, along with those who are at a little bit lower income threshold, the 50% area median income. To give you an idea there, if you're a single individual making below $32,650, that would also give you priority for this. And again, a family of four would be $46,600, a family of six under $54,100. So, and all of that information, once again, can be found at ida.org. So if you're wondering what those income eligibility factors are, they are there. And there's also a link in the application itself to be able to check if you are at or below those. But again, people at 50% of AMI, a family of making $46,600 or less, a family of four would get first priority, along with those who've been unemployed for 90 days or more. Just a couple more things on the next slide to touch base with you on. These are the things that both, again, as I mentioned, the housing provider or the landlord will need to provide certain proof and certain documentation along with the tenant. And these are the things that you're going to need to be able to have. So again, for the next 3 weeks, only the tenant can initiate, or only the landlord can initiate an application, and that landlord is going to have to provide proof of ownership, and that could be your mortgage statement or a tax bill. You're going to have to provide proof of unpaid rent. That could be a letter from your property manager, or that you make up to show. It could be a rent ledger, so just showing the unpaid rent that is there. You're going to have to provide your own Social Security number or an ITIN number. Documentation is not, you do not need to be documented in order to be, as a landlord or a tenant, in order to be able to take advantage of this program, or an employer identification number if it's a corporation. You'll provide a copy of the lease if it's available. And the lease is important because that's going to help to evidence how much the rent is every month. But you can still apply if there isn't a written lease, and the application will explain what to do in that instance. Or we can help you at the Neighbor Project. And then you'll need to have a tenant email address. And again, this is important because it's only an electronic application. And so this is one of the ways that we helped last time, the Neighbor Project, for some tenants who didn't even have email addresses or didn't have access to technology. The Neighbor Project is available to help a tenant set up an email address. You can call us and we can work with your tenant. We can help explain that this is legitimate. We're a partner, as I said, with the Illinois Housing Development Authority, with the state, and we're here to help. So that's one of the ways that we can help. Or if the tenant can't navigate things on their own, we can set up an appointment for them to come in and use one of our computers so that they can walk through the system and get help in doing that. Or as a landlord. You can set that up as well if you'd like to have somebody walk you through. The tenant has a little bit less to upload and be there, but they are going to need to fill out their basic household information. They do need an ID will cover their proof of address, but if their actual lease is different than what their ID says, they can also upload a recent utility bill within 90 days to show what their address is. Again, they're going to have proof of household income. And there are a variety of ways, as I explained, that you could do that. But it should be there. IDA has made that easy, so that if you don't have access to that, you can just fill out a form. And again, the Neighbor Project can help you with that. There will be a part for you to confirm your rent details and the past due amount. If you receive public assistance, there will be, such as disability or Social Security, there'll be a place for you to upload proof of what that income is, because that is considered part of your household income. And again, a valid email address. So those are the basics of what you're going to need to provide. I think there's one more slide on here that we can just take a quick look at, but I think we've mostly covered this. Again, if you look at the very bottom, how to apply, that's what I would direct your attention to on this last slide. For more information, all of the details I've just explained are available mostly, I think, on an FAQ, a frequently asked questions document, that if you just go to ida.org, you'll be able to click on this program and you'll scroll down, and there's a frequently asked questions document that you can access straight at ida.org. Or if you're ready to apply, that ilrpp.ida.org is where you can access the application and get started. All right, so I'm going to pause there and invite the Congresswoman back in to see if there have been any questions, or if she's got any questions we want to walk through. Again, just to make sure, there are a number of steps here. So we want to make sure people understand what needs to happen to access this assistance.
Well, Rick, you provided us with a wealth of information. Thank you for walking through the details and all the steps of applying. I did want to note that today is tax day, May 17th.
Okay.
So, yes, folks should take advantage of the opportunity to file their taxes, particularly folks with children, because they need to get that tax return in today to be able to get their child tax credit once those begin being mailed out in July. So we've done prior sessions like this on that program, but I think that there might be some eligibility overlap between the audience that might be watching our conversation today. So let's get started with a few questions that we've received here in the office. And so if anybody watching has a question, please type it in as a comment to the video, and we'll do our best to answer it before the end of our discussion today. So Rick, how will Illinois' rental payment program funds be distributed to approved applicants?
Yeah, and that's a simple one. In the application yourself, you will fill out your bank information or how you want to get paid. And it is a check that goes to the landlord or to the housing provider, right? So that these funds will not go to the tenant. They're all going to be going directly to the housing provider. And in order to complete your application, you have to fill out that information, how you want to receive that check. Okay.
And will the program run out of money?
So that's a great question. And I was surprised to hear, I'm actually going to read this verbatim, just because I think this is really good news. So if you go to those FAQs that I mentioned, you'll see the 8th one is actually a similar question about whether or not there's going to be enough funding for everybody. And the answer that the state of Illinois has provided is that the emergency assistance provided by the federal government, that's where it comes from, and that the state believes that Illinois has enough funding to help all residents who are confirmed to qualify for assistance. And I think I should point out that's in large part because there have been 2 nice big swaths of rental assistance that have been allocated by Congress. So thank you again, Congresswoman.
Sure.
So there's another. Yes, so when the tenants apply, there's more funding through the American Rescue Plan, as you mentioned, and the rent assistance that's been provided by Congress here just in the last 6 months or less. So thank you again for that. That's a really good news. So we encourage people to apply.
Yes, sir. So can a tenant apply to other emergency rental assistance programs offered by cities or counties?
So the answer to that is yes. But it's also, there's kind of a two-part answer, which is that you can only get funding from one, right? So you can't double dip, of course. And there are, of course, depending on which county you're in, or maybe even which city you're in, there may be multiple ways to apply. But this portal that we're talking about today is open to everybody. And I do believe that there are maybe some counties, for example, I believe some in your district, Congresswoman,
right.
Lake and McHenry, who've got their own portals that are open. And
you
so,
want to explain that for us?
Yeah,
Henry.
Yeah. So again, the way that the legislation was set up was that any county or municipality over 200,000 with a population over that could request their own allocation. And some counties, so I'm sitting here in Kane County, and I know much of your district is in Kane County, they elected to sort of contract back with the state. The state had this portal up and running. They were doing that. And so if you're in Kane County, the only way really to apply is through this ilrpp.ida.org. But in Lake County and McHenry County, I believe that they've elected to open their own portals, which gives them a little bit more control over that. And they do have a sort of a set aside for people in that area. Now, Kane County has the same set aside, but they've elected to kind of partner with the state on theirs. And the McHenry and Lake are running their own programs. I don't have the information specific. There it is. Very well prepared. That's where you can apply, depending on where you're located. It is perhaps important to point out that that ilrpp.ida.org is available to anyone. So it's not like you can't, if you apply there, that you can't get access if you live in Lake County or somewhere else.
Okay. And so as we have this open, are these the folks people should be reaching out to if they have questions, or where can a community member look if they have questions?
Yeah. So we've got the Neighbor Project in the top left here. And all of these other agencies, I believe these are the ones that probably looks like that serve parts of the 14th district.
That's
there
right.
are 64 of us. So the state of Illinois has contracted with 64 nonprofit community-based organizations like the Neighbor Project, where we kind of cover the Aurora area, southern Kane, and into Kendall County and some other areas as well, a big part of the 14th. But all of these other organizations are also contracted. And so and there's a couple things about that. Number one, our staff is trained on the application. We can walk you through. Number two, we've also been provided with tablets or technology to be able to help people get access to what they may need to be able to apply. But then also, we have sort of a special access. So if one of the questions comes up that isn't in the FAQs or about eligibility, or if there's something, we have kind of a special hotline for just the 64 of us to be able to call into the state to get those questions answered right away, and to walk people through and kind of clear any barriers to getting people to be able to apply.
That's fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to invite, once again, anybody watching that might have a question for Rick to please submit it in the chat, because we want to get to audience questions. I don't know. Maybe this is just so comprehensive, Rick, that we don't have any questions. I mean, that's entirely possible. Well, this is what I'll say. We want to just put a bright spotlight on the Lake County and McHenry County websites. Rick, if you can just, spotlight those directly so that folks know. We have, I guess I'll do it, the Community Partners for Affordable Housing in Libertyville in Lake County, the Consumer Credit Counseling Service of Northern Illinois in Woodstock, the Lake County Housing Authority in Grays Lake, the McHenry County Housing Authority in Woodstock, and Restoration America in Crystal Lake. Are all great resources for those folks who live in the 14th who reside in Lake and McHenry counties. Okay. Well, Rick, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate your taking the time. I appreciate all the work that you do, particularly for housing in our community. And we're so grateful to have you as a partner and a resource, particularly as we roll out this important program during the pandemic.
Well, and I just want to thank you again as well. This is such a great program. Obviously, there's a big need that's out there. And I think that here is a great example of where Congress and the people who represent us, like you, really stepped up to the plate to meet a challenge that has been with us a little bit longer than we hoped. But with your help, we do believe, and as I mentioned, the state believes that we actually can get this relief to everybody who is eligible. And so if you need help, the Neighbor Project's number is there. I can personally vouch for those other organizations. I know most of them, or the people who run them. Great organizations. Look for the one that's close to you. And I would just say that. Again, we're based in Aurora, and we serve more of the kind of the mid or southern part of the 14th district. But all of those organizations are going to be able to help you because they're really high quality groups.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much to Rick Guzman of the Neighbor Project for joining us today. And for those who are watching, who may be watching, maybe even a replay, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Our number is 630-549-2190. You can also visit my website at underwood.house.gov. We're looking forward to hearing from you and hope that this program can help during this challenging time. In the meantime, everybody, take good care of yourselves, stay safe and healthy.